Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Atrocious. You can also call me Jake, and today we've got an obscure OP05 finals the weekend before Nationals. It's an Edward Newgate mirror at the Darkside Locals. Thank you so much to these players and also Darkside Games for allowing me to record this game and do some commentary on it for the channel. Make sure to go check out Darkside Games. If you want to get some One Piece TCG singles, you can check out the link below to get to their website. It helps out the channel. Now, this will be an interesting match. I know the player on the left, Peter, he's a very big Newgate fan. Tried and true, all full-blood Edward Newgate, pro Flesh and Blood player. So very, very intelligent with the card games. And RJ, we've seen him the last couple rounds for this Newgate, a great Newgate player in his own right. I know was playing Rosinante at the beginning of the OP05 meta, so really going to be a cool matchup in here, especially for a lot of us newer players, I would say, that never really saw the Edward Newgate shenanigans that went on. And so both players thinking about what they want to do with their hands. I think I saw two Izzos, a Sanji, a Marco, and also a Newgate in his hand. So he's going to be opting to keep it, and we'll see who goes first in this one. It looks like it's going to be the player on the left using the Izzo right away, finding a couple cards. Did find a 5-drop Marco. I think that was the only card that they could grab. So just going to be getting that and passing off the turn to the player on the right. So player on the right is going to play an Izzo or a Nami. It's going to be an Izzo of their own and going to be looking at the top 5 cards. Everybody playing with these Nami sleeves, I see. And it's going to find a 9-cost Newgate. So going to think about what they want to do, going to be passing as well and taking a life, and player on the left now going into 3 Dawn. So attaching 2 Dawn and swinging at the Newgate, going to be taking that, putting that in hand, and playing down their second Izzo, just trying to build up that hand of characters. Did find that 9-cost Newgate, so going to be putting that in, opting that over the Jozu, and going to be going into the next turn. The player on the left now, I think, has 3 9-cost Newgates in hand, just getting 1 off life. So this could be pretty crazy on what we see. So 4 Dawn now, going to be swinging immediately with the leader, getting a 2K counter, and then playing an Atmos Vanilla. 4-cost, 6,000 power Whitebeard Pirate Vanilla character. Going to be swinging 6 as well, countering out of that with a 1K, and going to be playing the Marco to pop the Izzo, just minimizing the amount of bodies on board for the player on the right. And so going into the player on the right's turn now with 2, 4, 6 Dawn at this point. Going to be thinking about what they want to potentially do with this one. They could play a Marco of their own to pop the Izzo. They could maybe even play like the blocker Marco, and it looks like going to start out with an Izzo. So going to be looking at the top 5, finding a Whitebeard Pirate. It looks like they're going to find a the 5-drop Marco. I'm still getting used to the alternate arts in this game. So swinging the Atmos, 6K at leader, going to get a 1K Nami counter, and just passing the turn. So nothing really else to do with that 4 Dawn. So just going to leave it. Oh, I'm sorry. No, they did not just leave it open. So going to be putting that Marco down, taking out it as, oh, my apologies, and going into the next turn. Life is evened up at 2, and the player on the left is going to find an Ace Rush character, going to be minusing, I think, the Atmos and the Marco. I don't think the second one really matters, but the Newgate taking out the Atmos, the Marco swinging and getting a Sanji counter, and the Ace swinging and forcing a Jozu 2K counter. So now going into 8 Dawn now, still can't play a Newgate character, but could do some damage with these cards. So I think player on the left's in a really good position right now, especially with all of those Newgates in hand. Haven't really had to play too many counter cards at this point, and especially in this matchup, I think it comes down to just who gets more 9-cost Newgates at this point. It really did help that the player on the left did find the ace on that turn to be able to get another swing in and also take out some bodies. So we'll see if the player on the right can respond with a 7-drop of their own, but going to be attaching 2 and swinging with the Marco. So going to be swinging 8 at either leader or the ace. I'm not 100% sure. And it looks like pitching 3K worth of counters. So it looks like it was going to be at leader and doing 9 there. So thinking about what they want to do with the rest of their Dawn. 6 left in this one. Could play another 5-drop Marco to pop the Izzo. I don't know if that feels super good, but is a decent play that you could make just again to minimize the bodies. You know from the last one that Makino could be in their deck, which is a threat with Izzo. So thinking about just how valuable potentially that is, thinking about also where this Newgate wants to swing. If you don't play that Marco down, you could play something else like the 4-drop Marco and use the rest of the Dawn to attach to Newgate, the leader, and swing somewhere. Could swing at the ace, could swing at the character Marco, could just swing at life. So going to be swinging 8 at a mysterious place. It looks like it was going to be leader because there's two 2K, or I'm sorry, not two 2Ks, a 2K and a 1K. I think that's Jozu and blocker Marco. So going to be 8 on a, or I'm sorry, 9K counter on a 8K swing. And so just going to pass the turn again with the 4 Dawn, and it looks pretty strong of a position for the player on the right at this point. We see that they did get a Makino off the draw, so could be used to power up the Izzo here. I don't know if you want to go for a game at this point, but you definitely would feel good getting rid of this Marco. So I guess at this point, it just depends on how much you value that 9-drop Newgate. So going to be swinging first with the Marco, and I assume without that KO, not getting there, going to be swinging with the ace and potentially the leader as well, but the leader wouldn't be until this 9-cost Newgate drops. So swinging 8 now, going to be swinging 8 at that Marco. So thinking about whether they want to trash an event card or not to be able to save this guy, and it looks like they're just going to let him go. So maybe no events in hand, maybe just too important of events in hand. So now it's player on the right's turn to potentially drop a Newgate. The board state is looking much nicer on the left than the right at this point. Definitely hurt to not have, 2 consecutive turns of not really playing anything and just leaving up 4 Dawn, but maybe you just didn't have any other choice than to do that. So going to be thinking about what he wants to do here. Shifted off 4 Dawn to one side and 6 to the other. So maybe he just has like 4, maybe he just has a ton of events in hand, all 4 rad beams in hand, maybe a guard point as well, just a couple different options that could provide in this one. So thinking about what he wants to do in this, going to be looking through the discard pile, seeing, okay, how many 2Ks have you given me? How many 1Ks have you given me? What's your stuff look like? And only a 5-card hand in the player on the left's hand. Could escape here with potentially a life or maybe a character or 2 going out. So going to be playing a Newgate of his own there. Going to be swinging 8 at the Marco, and the Marco going down. 1 Dawn left open, potentially for a radical beam if I had to take a guess. So both players at 1 life now, staring down with Newgates. And so player on the left is going to start out by swinging the 10 at the 8 right now. So thinking about where he wants to go with this. Could play another Newgate down to boost his leader up to 8 and then attach 1 Dawn to the ace and swing 8. Would be swinging at face twice and committing the rest of his Dawn, but I don't think we see a radical beam or anything in hand. So unless he wants to feint a radical beam, which is something that some players do, might be leaving himself a little bit vulnerable in there. But he's got a couple 2Ks in hand. I've seen some Jozu, some Makino, it's like 3 more Newgates in hand. So there's a lot of non-counter as well, but going to be taking that life. And so that life going into hand right there, going to be slapping down that Newgate, a second straight Newgate, swinging 8 at the leader and a 2K counter, and passing off the turn, opting not to attach that 1 Dawn to the ace and swing. So an interesting strategy right there to make note of in case, you know, at nationals or something, or at locals, you hit the Newgate mirror match in OP05, which is wild to think about, truthfully. And so thinking about what he wants to do, it looks tough though, because even if you get a Newgate of your own at this point to be able to put down right, those 10 cost Newgates are still going to swing. So if you swing your 10 cost Newgate at their 10, or I'm sorry, the 9 cost Newgate at their 9 cost Newgate, all they need is just 1K counter. So going to be committing 2 Dawn. Now popping the Izzo and either swinging at life or swinging at this Newgate character. And so not going to be playing another Newgate down on this turn. So thinking about what he wants to do, does have Makinos and Jozu's in hand. So does have to commit 2 cards though if the swing is at the 9 cost Newgate. Does have to commit 2 of those cards. And if you only have 2K counters in your hand, that could hurt a ton. So you got to think about what's more valuable, keeping this guy alive or the counters in your hand. So we'll see what the player on the left decides to do with this one. And going to be committing 3 cards to it. Going to be committing 2 Jozus and a Makino. So it looks like that Newgate character was swinging at life at that point. So pitch 3 cards for that. Only 2 in hand now at this point. So thinking about what he wants to do, player on the right. Definitely probably going to be attaching some to the Newgate leader if I had to take a guess. You have to commit at least 2 to match the face of the opposing Newgate leader, but could use the other Dawn, keep some up for the potential rad beams that you have. You could do a 4-drop blocker Marco that could help you out in this one. It is just a really tough scenario right now. And so it looks like he's putting 4 on the Newgate, going to be swinging 10 at the leader, and player on the left is going to take it. Going to be triple Izzoing. And so the triple Izzo +1 is going to take the game. Oh my goodness. Holy cow. The triple Izzo 9,000 power boost on a 2K body +1. The Makinos coming in huge in that game, and RJ is going to take that one. Such an insane game. My goodness. Thank you so much for everyone watching this one. I super appreciate everyone who tuned in this tournament. This was a cool one with Newgate getting a lot of showcase in that one, and they're walking it back, seeing what could have been done a little bit differently. But again, thank you so much to the players, and thank you so much to Darkside Games for letting me record this, and I can't wait for the other games to come. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.